Hey everybody, what's up from Pokemon Classics, reminding you all that the classics never go out of style. You know, it's actually been a few weeks since I've made one of these auction recap videos, and so we have a few different weeks worth of data to go through. And in this video, I wanted to highlight some of the more expensive cards out there to show just how resilient this Pokemon card market has been. So what we're going to do with this one is we're going to start in the $1,000 territory and work our way up with some of the more expensive cards. And in this video, at the very end, there were actually 14 different cards that sold for over $50,000. If that's not resilient, I don't know what is. But anyway, I've done enough talking. Let's roll into the auctions of the week. Or weeks. All right, so we're going to start it out with cards that sold for between $1,000 and $3,000, and there's 20 cards that I wanted to highlight, starting with this one from TCA Gaming, and this is the Rapidash e-reader sample card, so it has the Japanese back to it but the English front. Never an actual licensed product, and this one was a Gem Mint 10, and it sold for $1,025 to start out our recap. Next, we have a PSA 10 First Edition Moltres card from the Fossil set. It's a beautiful set, one of the legendary birds. This one also selling for the same price point at $1,025. Next, we have another card from Fossil set. This time it's a different type of bird. It's the fossil bird, Aerodactyl. And this one was also a First Edition Gem Mint 10 from PSA, selling for $1,032. So just slightly outpacing the Moltres. Next up, we have another sample card from the e-reader set. And this one also from TCA Gaming, and this one is Ghastly. Those ghost Pokemon are going to command a little bit of a premium since they are so popular, especially Gengar. But the Ghastly here sold for $1,083.87 in a Gem Mint 10. That's a pretty old cert on that one. Next up, we have a Charizard, and this is the Unlimited Charizard from base set in a PSA 9. Card's been doing pretty well lately, and this one sold for $1,150 in PSA 9. Next up, we've got a card that I know a lot of people out there love. It's one of the icons of modern collecting, and that's the Moonbreon card from Evolving Skies, Gem Mint 10 on this one, English version, selling for $1,260. Next up, we've got a card from my personal favorite set, Neo Destiny. That's where you have the light Pokemon, the dark Pokemon, and this is a CGC 10 Dark Tyranitar in first edition, selling for $1,275. Now, another card that I think is really cool with an interesting backstory is this Error Dark Dragonite, and this is the one that has the number 5 on it, which is supposed to be holographic, but some of them went through without the holofoil pattern, and I believe filled in one of the uncommon slots in certain booster packs. This is the unlimited version rather than the first edition one, and it sold for $1,350. It's a staple error card if you're an error card collector. Next up, we've got Legendary Reverse Collection, another set that I'm super passionate about. This one got a CGC 10, and it sold for $1,410. Personally, my favorite Mewtwo out there. This one is illustrated by Christopher Rush. If you don't know who that is, he's the one that illustrated the Black Lotus card in Magic the Gathering. Next up, we have a Scyther from Jungle Set, PSA 10, first edition, selling for $1,530. Really cool card, Scyther, first appearance. He has swords for arms, so what more could you ask for? Then we have a Shadowless Ninetales in a PSA 10, and Shadowless earning a bit of a premium over Unlimited, but not quite as much as first edition. This one sold for $1,530. It's not the error variant. That one would be amazing in a PSA 10, which to the best of my knowledge, I'm not sure there is any in the pop report. We'd have to ask old school Pokemon Nick to confirm that. Next up, we have another legendary collection out there, and we were talking about Gengar earlier, so here's a Gengar for you. This is the Gengar in PSA 9 selling for $1,590. That reverse holofoil pattern just really pops. Next up, we have a Typhlosion 17 from Neo Genesis in first edition. This card is absolutely ridiculous to grade in a 10 in PSA, and there's not a whole lot of them out there in CGC 10 either, so this card, pretty valuable if you can find it in clean condition. This one sold for $1,825. Next up, we have something modern, and this is our first black label from Beckett on the list. There'll actually be several of these, and this is the Pikachu VMAX, the chunky rainbow Pikachu, if you guys remember that one from Vivid Voltage. This one sold for $1,860. Again, those black labels, very difficult to achieve. Next up, we have our second legendary bird on this list, and this is the Articuno from first edition Fossil set. In PSA 10, very low population card. This one sold for $2,176. We have another modern card on the list, and this one kind of surprises me. Like, I know it's an expensive modern card, but outpacing some of those other ones like the Articuno. But this is the Latias and Latios GX team-up card and this one sold for $2,250 in a PSA 10 gem mint condition. Next up, we have a Machamp from base set. This is the Shadowless first edition version. They're all first edition, but there is a distinction out there between the Shadowless and the Unlimited. And this one sold for $2,400, which I think is a pretty reasonable price for those looking to complete that Shadowless or first edition base set. Next up, we have another Umbreon. This is the original Moonbreon, and this one is a CGC 10. It's from Neo Discovery, first edition, and this one sold for just $1 more than the Machamp, selling for $2,401. One of my all-time favorite artworks right here. Next up, we have Giovanni's Persian from Gym Challenge, another first edition PSA 10 low population card out there. And if you're working on a collection, this is one that's going to set you back finishing up those holo sets. But anyway, this one was $2,426. The last one that we're featuring in that $1,000 to $3,000 price range is the Mewtwo. This is a Shadowless Mewtwo from base set in a Gem Mint 10. Mewtwo is a very popular Pokemon, and it's a pretty high price for this one, $2,760. As we work our way up the price tier, we'll next visit the cards that sold for between $3,000 and $10,000. There's 24 such cards that I wanted to highlight, starting with this Latias Gold Star in PSA 9 condition. This one sold for $3,000. Another card coming in at the exact same price of $3,000 is a Japanese Shining Noctowl, and these are actually a lot harder to find and to grade in Japanese than they are in English, so a bit of a premium here for this one. Another Japanese card on the list is this Charizard from base set. This is not the no rarity version. This is the cheaper one, the regular one. This one sold for $3,000. Now our second black label on this list from BGS is this Rayquaza VMAX from Evolving Skies. Beautiful artwork on this one, and this one sold for $3,050 from the PSA eBay store. Next up, we have the Mimikyu, the Scream card, and I really like these, and it's kind of surprising to me that the Mimikyu is the most expensive of them. But this one in a Gem Mint 10 sold for $3,100. Now, one of the cards that I think is really gorgeous is this Espeon EX from Unseen Forces, and this one got the CGC 10 Pristine, so it's a harder grade than the regular CGC 10. This one sold for $3,150 through ZNG Emporium, very reputable seller, personal friend as well. Next up, we've got a Charizard. This is the Dark Charizard First Edition PSA 10 from Team Rocket, and this card sold for $3,300. Now we got back-to-back Charizards. This one is from Neo Destiny. It's the Shining Charizard. This is the Unlimited variant. This one sold for $3,600 in a Gem Mint 10. We also have this Mew, and I know a lot of people would look at this and see this as the regular promo Mew, but this is actually the Japanese glossy version. It has the English text, but it was a special release, and so this one's very difficult to find. This copy sold for $3,720 in a Gem Mint 10. Next up, we have a Clefairy Shadowless card, a little bit more difficult to grade than a few of the others we've seen earlier in this video. This one was a Gem Mint 10, so pretty low population. This one sold for $3,720. Next up, we have another Charizard. This is the Blaine's Charizard from Gym Challenge. It's a first edition PSA 10, pretty much the icon card of that set if you're collecting Gym Challenge. This one sold for $3,950. Of course, we're going back-to-back Charizards a bunch on this list, so we'll also hit you with this first edition Shining Charizard from Neo Destiny. This one's only a PSA 9, and it actually outsold the Unlimited PSA 10. You guys will have to let me know how you feel about that down in the comments, but this one sold for $4,015. Next up, we have a Pikachu, and this is the no rarity base set Pikachu. The no rarities are kind of like the first edition of the Japanese sets, and so they command a premium, plus it's Pikachu. This one sold for $4,320 in a PSA 10. Next up, we have Dragonite, and Dragonite has been killing it lately. This is the first edition, first showing of Dragonite in Fossil set. Holographic card, beautiful design of it, especially with the colors in the background. This one sold for $4,605. Here we have the third legendary bird. It's not the fossil one, though. It's the base set first edition Zapdos. This one sold for $4,920. Next up, we have another Umbreon. Umbreon's a very popular Pokemon out there, so it makes sense that it would occupy a number of spots in this list. But this one was a Gem Mint 10 PSA copy from Skyridge. This one sold for $5,100. Next, we have a Lugia, and this is the Lugia from Silver Tempest, the Lugia V, and it's another black label. These black label premiums are just crushing it when compared to the regular PSA 10 or CGC 10s. And this one sold for $5,101. Next up, we have another black label, and this is the Celebrations Charizard. Comparatively, this card goes for about $200 in a PSA 10, but in a black label 10, this one earned $6,100. A testament to the low scarcity and how low populations can contribute to those really expensive price points. Next up, we have the Bilingual Executor card, and this is not the one that comes as a reprint in Evolutions. This is the original OG. It was part of the Japanese Tropical Mega Battle tournament. And this card, very difficult to find in a CGC 8, selling for $6,150. Has English and Japanese text on it, so kind of unique card there. Next up, we have one of the rarities out there. This is a Charizard Japanese card, but this one has the old label of CGC 10, and this is the Perfect 10. These aren't out there anymore. You can't get these labels anymore, so it's a relic. And that's probably what drove the price of this one to $6,450. Next up, we have a Blastoise, and this is the Blastoise from the Trainer Deck B. And so on the back side, it has red outline, and it has the stamp on it saying Trainer Deck B. It's also non-holographic. A lot of history behind the Trainer Decks if you've never seen them before. This Blastoise, though, sold for $6,500 in a Gem Mint 10. Next, we have a Charizard, and this is a base set, PSA 10. Nothing overly special about it besides its condition and the fact that it's the first Charizard out there, but this one sold for $9,300. We got another Charizard, like I said, we're going back to back, and this is a CGC 10 Shadowless Charizard. Shadowless one looks a lot better in my opinion. I like the saturation of it. This one sold for $7,500. Next, we have another Shining card from Japanese. This time it's the Shining Mewtwo, PSA 10. As I was saying, these are very difficult to find, very difficult to grade in Japanese, and this one earned a premium $9,600 on this sale. Well, guys, we're making our way up the price scale. We're now up to $10,000 to $50,000 price range for auctions. And there are 8 cards that I wanted to share with you here. Our first card on this list is another Umbreon, first edition from Neo Discovery, and we saw it earlier, but now we're seeing it in a CGC 10 pristine grade. This one sold for $10,000 right on the nose. Beyond that, we have a Venusaur first edition base set PSA 10 card, and this one is one of the big 3. It sold for $13,800. Next, we've got one of the Illustrator cards out there, and this is the Zoroark PSA 10. This is the 4th grade winner, which is one of the more difficult ones to obtain, and it was sold for $18,600. Next, we have a card that you never see in PSA 10. This is one of the lowest population PSA 10s out there, especially for vintage cards. This one sold for $19,200, and it's the promo Venusaur number 13. It's unreal to grade in a 10, so it's cool seeing this one come up for sale because you don't see it very often. Beyond that, we have a first edition PSA 9 base set Charizard. It's one of the most iconic cards, if not the most iconic in the hobby. This one crossing the $20,000 mark at $20,100. We also have Blastoise to round out the big 3, and this one was a PSA 10 Gem Mint condition, selling for $21,000. So it is a little bit interesting that the PSA 9 Charizard and the PSA 10 Blastoise are running pretty much neck and neck. After that, we'll get into one of the prototype cards, and this is the Japanese Beta Presentation Mewtwo card, and a lot of these have been coming up for auction and been discussed all across social media platforms lately. This Mewtwo sold for $25,500 in a CGC 10 Gem Mint grade. But it's not just the Mewtwo. There is also some of the alpha test print cards that are also prototypes, and the Charizard is naturally going to be one of the more expensive ones. This one only got a grade of authentic, and yet it still sold for $33,600. You guys will have to let me know what you think about the prototype cards, the alpha set, the beta set that are currently being circulated. I know they're a little bit controversial. Well, we've made it to the $50,000 and above mark, and there are 14 listings that I wanted to share with you, starting with this set of 3 Japanese Melee Scramble promo cards. And I know the Eevee is highly coveted by Eevee collectors out there. This set of 3 sold for $50,400. Beyond that, at the $60,000 mark, we have a Lugia from Neo Genesis in first edition. Very difficult card to grade. This one got a BGS 10 along with the MBA Gold Diamond stamp, further validating its quality. Another card selling for $60,000 is a PSA 9 copy of the number 3 Trainer Trophy card from the Tropical Mega Battle. This one even has the plaque for it, which is really cool. Little bit of history there for you. Another card that's one of the early prototypes is this Japanese Delta Playtest Charizard, and these have like the mounted on cardstock thing going on. This one sold for $66,000, even though it only had an authentic grade, so just shows you the testament of how powerful Charizard is in this market, even without a numerical grade. Another card with a lot of history behind it is the Trophy Kangaskhan card, and this one's a PSA 9 copy, selling for $66,000, an absolute icon of vintage Japanese promo card collecting. Next up, we have another trophy card, and this is a number 3 trainer from the Spring Battle Road series. These don't come up very often. This one's a Gem Mint 10, and it sold for $66,000. Now, we also have the number 2 trainer, which earned just a little bit more at $69,000. It's also a Gem Mint 10. And then, of course, we got to finish off the trifecta with the number 1 trainer card, also in a Gem Mint 10, to complete the whole set. This one obviously commanded a premium at $93,000. Next, we have another early prototype card, and this time it's the Japanese beta presentation Charizard. And this one did get a grade. It's a CGC 8, commanding a premium as Charizard often does at $99,000, so just shy of that $100,000 mark. Now, we will cross over into that $100,000 mark with a complete set, minus the Machamp, of all of the Disco Holo cards. These were also an early prototype version, and these all have CGC 10s, with the exception of the Charizard that was a pristine CGC 10. The entire set ran $156,000, which is pretty expensive. Speaking of pristine 10s, we also have this first edition base set pristine 10 Charizard with the NBA Gold Diamond stamp on it as well, and this one sold for $180,000, so getting pretty close to that PSA 10 territory. We also have a Pikachu, and this is the Alpha Prototype Japanese Pikachu. This one's a CGC 10 pristine as well, and people are out there as Pikachu collectors, so they're going to pay outlandish prices, even for something in black and white with sort of a Game Boy aesthetic like this. This one sold for $204,000. Wrapping it up, we have our second to last card on this list, and it's the iconic Pikachu Illustrator card, and this one was a PSA 8.5, and it sold for $300,000 even. And if that's not enough, we'll go double the trouble because there's a second Pikachu Illustrator card that sold. This one was a CGC 9, and this one sold for $360,000, with one unique attribute: it has Takumi Akabani's signature on it as well, which may have helped the price point out a little bit. So there you have it. Quite a bit of gold out there in the last couple weeks' auctions. Some really big cards, some iconic cards, some history, a little bit of everything. Anyway, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this video, recapping some of the auctions of the last few weeks. I welcome your comments down below, though, and what you think about the Pokemon market currently. Personally, I feel like it's starting to pick up a little bit again, especially with the vintage cards that I've been selling on my eBay store, and maybe some of you have felt the same way. I don't know, I'm pretty optimistic about Pokemon going forward, and running through some of these auctions is something that helps validate that anecdotal feeling that I've been experiencing personally. Nevertheless, regardless of what this hobby does, it's a lot of fun to be a part of. I enjoy it, and that's really what's most important. So I'm going to leave you guys with that. I'm Pokemon Classics, reminding you all that the classics never go out of style. Don't forget to have fun collecting. That's what this is all about. We'll see y'all with the next video. Bye, everybody.